Hey, YouTube. How is it going? I hope all is well. You'll just have to excuse me for the brevity and all the other fun stuff on this particular stream. It is very short notice. More or less, I got a brand new computer system, compliments of Brian, a good friend of mine. So we are just kind of testing this thing out and make sure we can do it. We're trying to do everything here in 4K. Count it 1, 2, 3, 4K. So hopefully this is working well and we don't have any issues. So far everything's looking pretty good, but I don't expect many people and I don't expect to talk too long about anything, except for we've got Mr. Offset Guitar Tech in the house. Thank you for coming in. I hope all is well. So yeah, there has been some updates on the amp giveaway. Nothing has really changed in that regard. I just want to put that out there right off the bat. I have been busy ordering things that we need to get and just kind of doing some back-end prepping. You can also see I got a couple amps in front of me. I'm going to be honest in saying that when I went to AC's house to kind of do a little thing, we haven't exposed that yet. I did the Cerberus portion of that video. Hey, how's it going, man? Thank you for coming in, dude. I appreciate that. So I did a whole video though that shows all these different amps, but I will be honest in saying that these were just a little bit nerfed when I took them to AC's house, which is to say that they weren't quite ready yet. I just had to get them into a state. This one has been through many a state over the years, and it's been fighting me a little bit, and I finally got to a point where I just kind of realized, like, it just wants to do what it wants to do. So I changed my attitude towards it, and needless to say, it's in a really good spot right now. I'm very happy with it. It's in a better spot than it was in the video that I'll post later this week, hopefully, of me over there at AC's house. We're just more or less doing more, it's like kind of an interview / just checking all this stuff out. Now this guy here, this guy's gonna be a beast. Truth be told, this guy kind of started life off as a train wreck, and I'm using my quotation fingers because it was loosely based on like a train wreck express or something like that. I was using this output transformer, which is essentially the same output transformer that they would use in a train wreck express, and then of course I was using a slightly larger version of this transformer here, which is the one you can just kind of see off over here to my left hand. But I couldn't get to a place where I was happy with it. I was trying to learn what it was that Ken Fisher did in his designs and get kind of in his mindset, if you will, about what the heck is going on. And what he's doing is not what everybody thinks he's doing. Truly, it involves a lot of the phase inverter in his design, which is why they don't generally work very well when you try to put a master volume in the things. When you put a master volume in there, you start playing with it like you would, you turn it up to get it to 11, right? Well, the problem is when you turn it up that high with an amp that's already that unstable, because he basically tuned it to just the edge of stability, and that's a cool thing when you're working with an amp in a normal fashion, right? Where it has no master volume, it's just a volume control. So you turn it up and it's either clean, or if you can handle the amount of volume, it gets really nasty. Well, for only having 2 or 3 gain stages in this guy, I technically call it only 2 gain stages because there's only 2 stages after the preamp stage. You can kind of understand, like, there's a lot of gain going on in that thing, especially when it gets to the edge of stability. Well, I had to try to reverse engineer that and get it to a space where I was happy with it while having a post-phase master volume, because I like having post-phase master volumes in the majority of my amps. Well, needless to say, that doesn't always work very well. So this thing has gone through many a different iteration to get it where it's at. Currently, where it's at now has basically gone full circle, which is to say it's essentially right back where I started it from, except for now that I completely understand what Ken Fisher was up to, I was able to kind of redesign the circuit a little bit and make it work, and she is a beast. And what's nice is this one is not so unstable that you can't turn everything all the way up. I like it. I'm one of those types. I'm just saying that I'm one of those types where you have to be able to use the volume controls and all the knobs and get some sort of control all the way through the sweep, right? When you want it turned all the way off, I want it to be all the way off. When you turn it all the way up, it needs to have enough, but not so much that it's out of control. Dale, thank you for coming in. Good to see you, my man. So that's my mindset. That's how I operate. That's not necessarily the best way. It's a way. That's all I can say. It's not the best way. It's a way. But needless to say, this one here, you can turn all the dials all the way up to 11 if you want to call it that, and it will stay in control. But it has more than enough gain, let me tell you. We'll expose this one later. I have a little treat for you coming up. I do realize that over the last 2 or 3 years, that I've been doing this, I really haven't been showing you much in terms of sound as to what these things sound like. You got to see a little bit of a snippet of this in a state. I'm going to say a state because it was a state, but it wasn't the state that it needed to be in. But we're gonna show you that here soon. I have been playing around a little bit more with this guy here, which is the little treat from John of or Granta's Glorious Tone, if you want to call it that. But I'll be honest in saying that the more that I've gotten to play with this, the more I've kind of come to terms with it. It does a really, really cool thing. It is definitely designed and set up to sound good through a cabinet that is mic'd. That's how they set this thing up. The recording out, it's a pile of shit. The recording out is absolutely useless, no matter how you try to trick this thing out. It just can't use this thing. It sounds like Dooku. If you use the effects send, it sounds like Dooku. It's extremely thin, extremely bright. But if you use the normal outputs into something like the, the 2 Notes Torpedo Captor X or something like that, some other sort of attenuation device, etc., works great. Really hard to beat, to be honest. Except it still has its weakness. Cannot work with single coils. I tried all the little tricks. I tried the low gain mode. I tried the half. This thing actually has a half wattage mode, so you can put it from 100 watts down to 50, etc. I tried that. That didn't work. Nothing. Currently, I have it in the low gain mode. To me, it actually sounds better in the low gain mode. It's got more gain than it needs. Vintage is not vintage in any way, shape, or form. Classic is where this thing is honestly happiest at. Modern is just... It's not there. Classic is where it's at on this particular thing right here. So yeah, it works really well. We'll do another video later that kind of does an A/B between multiple things, but I would say for the money on this, I don't know that I would recommend it. Used, if you could get it for less than $600, if you could get it for $400, maybe $500, I'd say it would be cool if and only if you only use humbuckers. Will not work with single coils. I could not get it to work with single coils. It sounded like absolute dookie to me. Way too bright. Whatever processing or whatever kind of thing they got going on in here to make it do what it does works really well with humbuckers. You throw single coils in front of it and that's where its weakness is at. Way too bright. It's interesting because it's not too bright in and of itself, but you can hear that they did something in the high end to make it so it had like this level of clarity, and that's great because it has that level of clarity. But when you throw single coils in the mix, that's when it goes all to hell. So there's that. Now, the recording out, I tried it. I could not get anything useful out of it. It's either too bassy or too woofy and too woolly or too bright. It's always too bright. Always too bright. Except for if you use humbuckers. And I like single coils myself. I've turned into a single coil guy. I cannot get this thing to work with any single coil that I have. And let me show you something real quick. I'm going to see if I can pull this thing up and make this work here. My apologies. We're trying something right now. So I'm going to go to preset number 3. Hey, there it is right there. So this guy right here You may recall that I was having a tough time the other night. I had to do some modifications to the pick guard and this, that, and the other. Well, needless to say, I got it set up now so the pick guard fits, and it has those pickups that John had provided me with that in there. Bright cap on. It's... I don't know what it is, but John, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming on in. But, is it preset 1 I want? No, not preset 1. It's preset 2. Now I gotta wait. There it is. All right. So, again, I just want you to know, I'm not necessarily trying to bash on this thing. It has its thing that it does really well. But I have learned that this guy right here, this little nano tube, as they call it, is in the output section. So if you were to plug into the effects return, right, you won't actually get any sound out of this thing until this tube warms up. So this tube is part of the output section. So they're using it either to try to mold things or whatever it is they're trying to do. So again, it sounds fine. And the service, let me tell you, Dale, how do you explain it? You just don't really know what it's like to have like one of these types of amps designed and built by somebody that's really trying to get them into the, you know, to do that thing that they do, right? It's something else to just take a design of an amp and just rebuild it, right? There are a multitude of companies out there that are just taking a Marshall JCM 800 and building it, you know, spec for spec, and then throwing a couple of the different modifications that everybody on the planet already knows about. There's plenty of people out there doing that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not that guy. I don't want to be that guy. Line 6 does a cool thing for the things that it does, but everything is always a full package, and it's really, really difficult to put a full package together when everything is built to a dollar amount. The amount of R&D time spent alone just on these two right here would absolutely probably bankrupt most of these companies. Line 6 cannot afford the amount of time it would take somebody like me to make a full-time wage at the wage that I would expect to make to do this kind of stuff and provide that level of quality that comes out. They just can't do it. So what do these companies do? They're like, okay, we want to make something because this fills a niche, right? We need an amp that's indicative of an AC30. Hey, this thing has 4, you know, EL84s, a 6V6, excuse me, a GZ34 tube rectifier, and an EF86 preamp. This is going to be our XYZ version of an AC30. Well, they're going to put it together and they're going to build it just like an AC4 or the, what's the other 15 watt version, the AC15 or whatever. They're going to build it just like that. They're going to splat it together and it's going to work. It's going to make noise and it's not going to sound bad. It's not going to sound great either. And they're just going to plop it out there because it makes money. This thing here, is that what you're talking about? It's above 7. Bright cap will be less activated. I have not played with it to that degree yet, where I played with the volume and the, you know, the master settings on it. I would assume that if they actually designed it like a real amp, that might be the case, but I haven't played with it to that degree yet. I'll give that a shot and see if it makes a difference. But I can tell you right now, the vintage and modern mode, no. Between the clean and the classic, it'll work. It'll do what it's supposed to do. But getting back to these guys, when you actually spend the time on an amp to get it to do exactly what that amp is meant to do, you cannot beat it. It just cannot be beaten. And that's why designs like, you know, Ken Fisher's Trainwreck stuff, and why Dumble's, you know, things or whatever, they work for the people that he made them to work for. Straight up. Dare I say, you know, Friedman, we always talk about Friedman, we can't have a conversation without him, but, you know, he's right now, he's the king of the modified Marshall, right? Headfirst, I would honestly say, is probably a better product in the grand scheme of things. but head first is what head first is, right? I think he's got a challenge on his hands, head first that is. I think he's a cool cat, a really cool cat, but he's never going to garner the full support of Friedman because they are kind of literally direct competition. I mean, as far as modified marshals go, those two are literally head and head. So while they are friendly with each other and they do play nice and handshake and all that stuff with each other, I can't see it going too much further than the, at face value, if you will. Friedman is kind of the king of the modified marshal right now. But that's really all he's got. He doesn't have anything else. He's got modified marshals. That's it. And I just don't think he can get much better than that. Maybe he can. Maybe he'll surprise me one day. But then again, it's still a marshal, right? It's nothing that he's done. It's nothing unique or different. Not that any of these things are all that unique and different either, but we just try to be what we try to be. But what's different about these is that while they look similar and kind of had, homage, if you will, to some of these different designs, they are completely different. They are a completely different beast. This is not an AC-30 in any stretch of the imagination. It has nothing in any kind of similarity to even an AC-15 or any other design out there. Even a train wreck, if you wanted to get on their 4 EL84 version, the Liverpool, is it the Liverpool or the Rocket? I can't remember if it's the Rocket or the Liverpool that has the EL84 version that he has. With this transformer, he's got a 6.6K transformer in it. I don't know if he does or not, but I can tell you right now that this has nothing in common with either of those designs. This is its own little thing. That's the direction it went. That's the direction it has landed at. This guy right here, nothing in common with a Trainwreck Express. There's a lot of things that have just deviated from that original topology, and I did some very different things even than what the Carson's Graceland, I think is what it's called, or Grace, whatever the one that Billy Corgan is using or something like that. So the Carson's amp, the Billy Corgan one, and I think there's it's not Carol Ann. There's some other amp out there that has basically a Trainwreck rocket, more or less, design. And those two do use a master volume. This one does have a master volume. They also use a bright switch. It's just a variation of one of the Trainwreck designs, right? It's inspired by. This one's inspired by. That was what it was meant to be initially, but that is not where it's at currently. This one is doing something very different, I think, than what most of those other guys are doing. We'll see more about that a little bit later, but I have been busy. Believe you me, you can hear the washing machine and the dryer going. I have ordered these guys here. Let's make it so you can actually see the leather on there. So I have the handle and I have the corners for the giveaway amp. That has been done. I have ordered the bolts that I need for the power transformer. Yeah, right. It's gonna make something roar, that's for damn sure. I have been busy, so I have not forgotten. I've picked up the metal that we need to make the shield. So just so you kind of understand somewhat of the layout, if you look at this guy here, it's going to kind of have a similar topology or layout than this. Golly, if I can get the words out. We're not using a tube rectifier. The transformer will be kind of in this little vicinity right here, and then we're going to use a shield. I have the metal to make that shield. I have a bender to make it so I can bend that shield. I have a welder ready to go. Well, I've had the welder, but we're going to use that. I already have the output transformer, you already know that, but I have gotten the handle and the corners. What else do we got? I got the bolts for the power transformer, as I had mentioned. I didn't have bolts big enough, so I needed some 1/4-20s for that. I like using American if we can get American, right? So we got some 1/4-20s for that. Just been ordering a bunch of little things here and there to kind of just make sure that as soon as I start on the giveaway build, it's just going to go snip, snap, bang, or whatever that word is. I'm looking at it now. I've just kind of done some soft layout work on it. I don't know if this will come across well or not, but we're gonna give it a shot. We're gonna give it a shot. So you can kind of see here, I was just trying to see how things were gonna fit. So I got the big power transformer over there. You can kind of see in that little box area there. So I'm trying to find a way to make sure that everything is gonna fit and work. So I think I got all the layout kind of worked out on this thing. Now, another big thing that I've been working on off camera was the turret board. So I kind of have to give myself some leeway right here in this one. I have a rough idea of what we're trying to do. It's loosely going to be based off of a, dare I say, a Dumble ODS or something like that, right? Loosely, very loosely. It's only similar in that it has 4 gain stages, and it's kind of going to go in that direction, right? I'm looking for a little bit more gain than that, but I still want kind of that creaminess. That's what I'm kind of going for. But I have to make it when I design this so that I can put things in there, you know, grid leaks, grid stoppers, and, you know, other sort of networks that once I put it in there, I can do any variation that I need to do and not have to worry about, I don't know. I just don't have to worry about it, right? So basically the objective is that when I build this guy here, I build it once, and that one time is all it takes. And no matter what variation of the circuit I go with, I have the layout that I need in order to make it work. Because as history has shown me, it doesn't matter how hard you try, and the math doesn't math out. It never maths out right the first time anyway, but more or less, when I put it together the first time, it will make noise. Whether it'll be a glorious noise is up for debate, and that's obviously why I need to try to design some escape paths, if you will. So that's another reason why it's been taking a while, is I've been trying to make sure that all these little escape paths are going to maintain for me. Because that amp, the giveaway amp, is going to be something else. It's going to be one of one. There will be none other like it. There will be none other like it in the world. I can tell you that right now. So if you are not in that competition at all, right now there have been, what, 33 views? How many of you concurrently? There's 6 of you concurrently, and it's pretty much everybody we know. But if you have not gotten in on this competition, it's not even a competition. Giveaway, it's a giveaway. It's a giveaway. That's all it is. Nothing more, nothing less. If you have not gotten in on this, you are going to be extremely disappointed, because I've mentioned it in a previous video. You lose on 100% of the shots that you don't take, period. So if you don't take a shot at it and you lose, it's one of one, and it's going to be something cool. This guy right here, I measured it out today. Now, I don't have the proof because I didn't take video of it, and I can't show you it right now. I'm not going to show you right now. How's that? But I measured out 25.5 volts on the output of this thing while it was dimed. You can dime this thing, and it will be quite happy to do it all day long. 25.5 volts on the output into 16 ohms means this thing was pushing at about 40 watts. So I was shooting for a 30 watt amp. This is a 30 watt amp. This guy right here, I have not measured it yet. I don't even want to know, but the last time I measured it out, it came out at a solid 50 watts. That was before I've done any of the modifications that I currently have. This thing here is a 50 watt amp. The new one that's coming out, the math that I've done on it has been very conservative. And when I say very conservative, I mean I'm shooting to make a 50 watt amp. I already know right now that at full shit and get, she gonna be at least 60 watts of shit and get. And like all my amps, the objective is that you can turn it up all the way, and it's gonna make glorious noise the entire way. Objectively speaking, anyway. Now, I don't think you'll want to turn it up that loud, because the way I'm trying to do it, it'll be very, very punchy for one. So it'll get the noise that it needs to get to relatively quick, I think. It's gonna be reborn. I don't know about be reborn, but it's definitely gonna come. I would love to hear I mean, I already know that he measured out what 47 volts or something on that thing. I think it was up there. It's asinine. Or was it 57 volts? I can't remember. It's an asinine number of volts. That's a lot of output. That is a lot of output. So Dale, if you haven't already, my commercials. Oh, do I have commercials? I hope they're not too intrusive. So, truth be told, I know Andy was talking about it earlier, you know, posers and stuff like that. This is expensive. And you guys don't put a lot of money in the super chats. Not asking, don't give a fuck. That's not the idea. Honest to God, my objective is to make it so that YouTube kind of pays for this kind of stuff. So I'm not asking you to make, you know, contributions, but every little bit helps. However, I have kind of started monetizing, and I'm not going to say it's paying off. It's not paying off. It's basically working out that I'm making $100 every 3 months or something like that. The last payout I got was right around the ass end of January 21st, I think it was, is when they pay out or whatever it is. And I got a whole $127. And we're coming up into March now, and I think I just breached whatever the payment threshold is. That you have to make a minimum of $100 before they'll even pay you. And I think that comes out on March 21st. I did really good the first month that I started monetizing, and it's just because everything is in there. But I am trying to make this so that YouTube kind of makes this possible. Part of that obviously is commercials, but I've gotten a couple super chats here and there. Grannis Glorious Tone gave me $20 the other day. Thank you. I will get those knobs. Don't you worry about that. I got a little bit of time, but it's coming. So what I can tell you though is, let's see here. Monday is always a bad day for me to work on amps. It's the first of the week, so I'm usually playing catch up at work, and it's generally kind of my day to try to plan all this stuff out. Because on the weekends, I'm either working on making this stuff happen in and of itself, or in this case here, what we're watching today is only possible because I got a brand new computer today. This is a brand new computer that you're watching this all come out upon. Brian, my good friend that went with me to Sweden and has just been a longtime supporter, longtime friend. He's a ride or die friend. Him and I have been friends for 20 some odd years, 20 plus years, easily 20 plus years. If we're not rounding 30 years, I'd be surprised. But he picked up a mini PC. It's literally about the size of this guy right here. It's about yay big. Fits on the back of one of my monitors that I'm standing in front of right now, and it's pretty beastly for what it is for a mini PC. This thing is beastly, and it's not hyper expensive, to be honest. Interestingly enough, the drives and the memory in it costs more than the unit itself, but it has a video card kind of built in, and it's beefy enough, as you can probably see, that we can do 4K, and that is kind of a huge deal for me. So hopefully that's another reason I've been kind of pushing these giveaway videos out, as I was hoping to make this so we can have 4K. You already saw that third view down there. So I've got this view here. I've got a tight view, which is for when I'm sitting down at the bench here, and you can kind of just see a little bit more of what's going on behind me. And then I've got this view here, because this is kind of my work area, if you will, down over here. I know you're looking at the big screen there, but that's not where we're at. Down here is where I do a lot of my work, and it's just because I don't have a bench. And you can see I don't have a whole lot of space. I can touch the amp behind me in this without extending my arms all the way out. So we have a pretty tight little area. So objectively, we're going to try to make that video live, like you're watching now, in real time down there. And when I say down there, it's more or less just going to be the drill press. When I'm doing the drill press work, that's where you're going to see that at. Once the drill press is out of the equation, Everything will be just kind of up here and in front. And you'll get to see kind of all the real deal shit that goes on. So let's just do this so you can kind of see what's going on. Now this is not work that would ever leave my house. There's a couple things in here that are just flying leads, if you will. This guy right here, as you can see, it's just in there. I put it in. This thing has been in like 10 different portions of the amp doing different things. And then this wire, I just didn't bother cutting it. This whole network, I need to get that network to fit in right here, I think, but that network won't work. And then everything else is pretty clean. It's doable. It's not ideal, but this is the level of work that comes out of most of them. This right here will never pass, by the way. I literally tacked those in. So this is what I do. This amp has been through hell and back again. I cannot tell you how many times. You can see here I got even a different resistor here than I do there. This resistor will probably get changed out. I did change this one out, but this is the kind of work that I do. This is a 40 watt amplifier right here, except for it's not. It's a 30 watt. I'm calling it a 35 watt, 30 watt, whatever. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up on everything here. So the Minis forum, if you go to minisforum.com, I believe it is, let me look over here and we can tell you for sure. Hold on. I'm doing two things here. I want to make sure I'm saying that. It is Minis forum, literally. Just go MINISFORUM and you will find what I'm looking at. I'm using the M1 Pro. Again, not that big. It's about the size of one of these transformers here in terms of, overall size, and it's about yay thick, 1.5 inches thick or something like that. So killer freaking machine. This particular one is an Intel device, and it has a video card built into it. It's got an ARC, if you will, built into it. So I think it was like $632 plus shipping or something like that is what it basically worked out to. Now, where it does kind of hurt is that is the bare bones, of course. So you have to buy your own memory. Right now, memory is a little bit of a bitch. Sorry, I didn't mean to knock the mic, but memory is kind of a brat right now. This one's got 64 gigs of RAM in it, and I got a 4 terabyte drive in there currently. I would suggest if you're going to get one of these, minimum 1 terabyte. Drives aren't exorbitantly expensive, but I did get, Brian provided me with one that is quite the beast. It's a Samsung like S990 or something like that. It's a 990 series. It's definitely better than the 980. And it's 4 terabytes. This thing's a pretty mean machine. So for what it is, for something that's literally the size of a transformer, and about $1,000 or something like that, it's hard to beat. But I just want you guys to know that when you buy an amp from me, this is the level of whatever's going on in there. Sand some of the dirty stuff that's going on, the flying leads. Those obviously get cleaned up, but you can see my little ziggy zag is perfect. It's like a perfect little ziggy zag. I'm doing some things that Riley probably doesn't like. Now, I'm using 0.1 UF in the output section. Now, the part that he doesn't always think about is that there is a corner frequency for all these things. So when you're using, grid leaks in conjunction with the coupling caps or whatever, right? Well, they do create a corner frequency. Now, if you do all the math, I don't bother you with the math because there's calculators online. ChatGPT will answer those questions for you. All that fun stuff. I do all that math on the back end. I try to show you some of the stuff and how to calculate it. I have videos on how to do that. If you watch my videos and just get through them, that data is in there on how to do the math. Now, I haven't really gone too much into the RC calculations on trying, to figure out corner frequencies, but I do kind of touch in on the math of, dealing with the corner frequencies for, the cap that you're using with the power supply. I do the power supply kind of stuff, but I haven't really gotten that deep yet into the preamp side of things where you're actually trying to create a corner frequency. Needless to say, it does exist. It is readily available. There are calculators out there en masse that will do that for you. But so anyway, the point that I was getting at is that if you play the numbers game well enough, you can use these larger 0.1 UFs with smaller caps. More or less it correlates just like any other thing. If you use a larger grid leak, you need to use a smaller coupling cap, right? And vice versa. All right, you use a larger coupling cap, you need a smaller grid leak. I'm using a smaller grid leak because I don't need to punch the ever-living shit out of my EL84s here. They're already sensitive enough, not really worried about it. I just want to make sure that what goes in is everything that I intended to go in. The only way to make sure that that happens is to have large coupling caps. Now, in order to create the corner frequency that doesn't overload these guys, I used smaller grid leaks. Now, the reason for the smaller grid leaks is to reduce the amount of overall volume that is going into these guys. So that way, when you turn it all the way up, they don't just go to straight Splatville. Now, it will still go into, you know, a little bit of that AC30 kind of graininess or whatever you want to call it. Dare I call it swirl or something like that. You can go into swirl if you want it to, but you just back the volume off a little bit, the master volume that is, and it cleans it up, and you still get the relative amount of gain that you were looking for. Admittedly, this amp does not do lower volumes very well. By that I mean, I did intend this to be just straight up, you know, you kind of get it all the way up. Like, by the time you're at the volume you need to be at on a stage, you're probably not going to be completely clean, although it will be pretty damn clean. But if you need to dime it all the way up, it's only a 40 watt amp at that point anyway. And with that 40 watts, you're probably not literally annihilating everybody. With an attenuator in there, you can do a lot of work. And this guy here works really well when you get her gained up all the way. When I mean gained up, I mean getting the output section to kind of play along. That's kind of why I wanted to make the EF86 work. When I was using a 12AX7 the way that I normally do, which is a parallel 12AX7. So when I say parallel, in a 12AX7 there are two halves, there are two triodes in there. Well, when you take both of those triodes and you parallel them together so they work as one, you get just a little bit more oomph out of it, but you reduce the noise floor in half, so you cut the noise floor in half, and it just does a bunch of cool little things. But whatever it does really cool. I like it. I think it does the thing. And this design here, it really does the thing. And the way I do my tone stacks, I do not like interactive tone stacks, and I don't do tone stacks. So when you don't do tone stacks, you generally end up with a little more volume, a little more snot, if you will. When I say snot, I mean more push into the next stage. So it means that you can tune the stages a little bit more, because you're not having to make up a lot of gain on the next the following triode stage or whatever, right? So let's say you put the tone stack at the end of your thing, whatever. So the rest of it would work pretty normally. But then after that last stage, you still kind of got to make up the gain somehow. I don't like tone stacks because they eat up a lot of gain, right? And they suck tone. Believe you me, tone stacks suck tone. They work really well in Fenders. Obviously, Marshall and Vox, they've been using them for eons now. That's not the problem or point, but I'm trying to go a different direction. And I like my mids. I like my mids. I gotta have my mids. I want my mids. Come on. So, needless to say, it's just a difference in opinion on how to get from point A to point B. That's really all it is. It's just my idea of doing this is different than the next guy. So I try to do non-interactive tone controls, and I try to make it so that the tone controls don't overwhelm any one part of the circuit. There are kind of two different topologies on how tone stacks are usually implemented. They're either implemented early in the amp, so they put it literally between the first stage and the next stage, right? So they put it early in the amp, or they put it later in the amp. So they got the first stage, they got all their gain stages, here's the phase inverter, they insert it, at this point right there, in between the phase inverter, or just before the phase inverter and the preceding stage to it. To me, that's not ideal. I don't like that. It just doesn't work for me. So, whatever. It's not that it doesn't sound good. It's just that you can never get like true linear, if you will, right? And when I mean true linear, that's to say that if you turn the knobs all the way up, there's still some sort of interaction, right? There's still some sort of curve to the EQ. With mine, that doesn't exist. It's either all the highs and all the lows, and it's pretty much straight through, or depending on how you set the lows and the highs, it either rolls off some of the lows or rolls off some of the highs, or a little bit of both, and you're left with the mids. I try to work on making it so the mids are balanced, which is to say that I do some things in the circuitry to make it so that, dare I say, they're not sucked out, right? But maybe they're sucked out just a little bit, so there's a little bit more highs and a little bit more lows than you probably need. And then when you roll those back a little bit, it kind of evens out. I say that. That's the closest I can equivocate it to. But when you turn another way I guess I kind of work around it is that, the lows and the highs kind of overlap enough that when you roll off the lows and you roll off when you roll off the lows, and you roll off the highs, the mids are kind of in there with it, enough to the degree where it kind of pulls the mids with one or the other, right? The mids just never actually ever poke all the way through in the middle and just say, yeah, here I am. So objectively, I try to make the amp sound as good as it possibly can when both the controls are dimed. So when both the controls are dimed, if it's still just a little bit too bassy or a little too bright, you just roll those back a little bit, and the mids are hopefully right where you need them to be. That's how I try to shoot for it to be. That's the beautiful thing about having an EQ pedal, which I kind of think every pedal board should have at least one EQ pedal of some sort. If you got too much mids, or too little mids in that case, you can always just poke it up a little bit on the front end and just work it from the front end. The amp does what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to amplify things. So too much of a good thing is still too much, but I try to shoot. I'm pretty good with making linear happen. I like linear. To me, I like things to sound pretty flat. So whatever that might be to someone else is different, but I don't know. To me, I seem to get good results. We'll see more, obviously, what I mean, but what else has been going on? Oh, I did get the Shoals sugar cone. Now you can't really see it. Let's see if I can get a view that you can see it. Let me go to this preset. That preset doesn't help much, and you can't see it in preset 3 either. In either case, I got the Shoals sugar cone, which is basically like a Fane or whatever kind of copy. It is a solid. How do you say? It's not a stamped steel. It's a cast aluminum frame. It's rated for 200 watts? No, 100 watts. Excuse me. Rated for 100 watts, and it's an 8-ohm speaker. Very unique speaker. Very bright, but yet clear. It's very bell-like, if I dare say the term. Not too bright, but it does have like this very nice high end to it. It's very PA-like, I guess, if you will. And the lows are not muted, but they're still full. It's kind of hard to explain without listening to it, but it does have like this low-mid growl. It's got this low-mid punch that's kind of cool. The cabinet that I'm working with it in currently does not suit it very well. It's my Duncan cabinet that I have. It's just a very persnickety. It's late for me. I'm sorry, guys. We're not going to be too much longer. I apologize. Didn't mean to do that. That was rude, but it's a very persnickety cabinet. The only speaker that I put in it so far that seems to work really, really well with it is the Creambacks. I have a Creamback M in there on one of them. I have two of those cabinets, but on one of them I have the Creamback M. It just works really well with that particular one. Anything else I put in there, it's either too bassy, not enough bass, too bright, or too dark. So the Creamback M variant, M65 or whatever the hell it is nice. It works really well in that cabinet. But dare I say that speaker in, I think, an open back cab, is like oversized, might suit it quite well. We'll see. I gotta make a cabinet. I need to make a cabinet that is oversized. I almost did it the other day. In my local Guitar Center, there is a Friedman 2x12 loaded with vintage 30s. And the price on it is not... It's not a new cab, but it's in new condition. I almost did it. But I hate supporting Homeboy. And the only reason I was considering doing it was because it might possibly be the real vintage 30s, like the UK made ones. But since I wasn't unable to confirm that, I kind of pushed off on it. Because I know that the Mesas are the real, at least the real UK versions of the vintage 30s. Not a huge fan of the vintage 30s. Although I will say at AC's house, whatever cabinet he had, it sounded really good. They're a little bit darker than I thought they would be. And I think that really has to do with the UK. I have a pair of greenbacks, the G12Ms or whatever you want to call them. And they are, to me, very bright. A little too bright. Everything I've ever heard about, like the Chinesium ones. They still got that nice woody mid-range to them. I do like that. The low-mid like woodiness that they have. The lows are perhaps a little muted. Not a bad thing, but the highs are just still a little bit brittle to me. But whatever. We're getting there. Little by little. I want to get another cabinet though, but I want to get a 12-inch like open back or convertible cab. Oh, thank God. The laundry's all done. I don't have to talk so loud anymore. But so yeah, there's just some things going on I need to get done, obviously, but we're going to get there sooner than later. Again, the big thing this week is to try to start making some progress on the giveaway amp. Believe you me, it is coming. And like I say, when it starts, it's gonna steamroll. It's gonna steamroll. That giveaway. It's time for bed, everybody. It's 9 o'clock. I gotta go to work first thing in the morning. But that amp is gonna come together really quick. It'll probably take a day to do like the shield piece that I need to do. I want to try to do that live because it is technically part of the build. I do have to do some welding. Another part of the reason I was pushing off was that I needed to do welding. Well, it's kind of sucky to do welding outside when it's raining. And especially when you're working with steel, you don't want the steel to rust, and water and steel don't go well together. And I do have to paint the part, so I don't want to have any more rust on there than need be. So little things like that I've been kind of pushing off. Next week there is no rain slated for us here. So I'll try next week to get the shield at least kind of shown, and then maybe at least get the cabinet drilled. The cabinet, I can drill that in a day. It's like an afternoon of drilling, we can get that done. Maybe thereabouts. It's usually a day. It depends on what's going on. If I know where all the holes are going to go, it's pretty quick. It's a real show, by the way. So there are a couple holes, obviously, in the cabinet that I don't know 100% yet. I'm still trying to work that kind of stuff out without dragging you down the whole layout, debacle. So the layout that I showed you in the last giveaway video, the actual official giveaway video, that one there, like, there's not a whole heck of a lot going on, except for that you do kind of get to see my general idea. So if you're not familiar with where we're at with that, definitely go back, check that out again, and that will kind of help you get an understanding of where that one is sitting in its state, where its purpose is. And then of course we laid out the chassis a little bit. So all that kind of stuff is sort of dialed in. but there's a couple holes that we'll probably have to figure out later on after everything's kind of mounted, you know, the power transformer and the output transformer and the tube sockets and stuff. There might be holes like these for the turret board that are just, we might have to fit those in somehow. But once we get to the point where we're actually loading up the turret board, it's gonna go pretty freaking quick. I mean, it realistically only takes a day to lay, you know, get the turret board, you know, smashed and all the parts bent and in place. Obviously soldering it doesn't take that much time. I mean, well, we're talking maybe a 3 or 4 hour stint for that. Another 3 or 4 hours to drill out the chassis, 3 or 4 hours to make the shield. And then it's the wiring. Now, the wiring is the less than fun part. That might take a couple days just because, you know, it could take... it's not overtly crazy in this particular build, but, you know, it could take, you know, 3 to 8 hours, 4 to 8 hours or something like that to get that completed. But, you know, so we're still looking at, you know, 4 to 5 videos easily right there. But if I can actually work on everything, you know, these things every day during a week, you can see how it can come together within a week. I suspect it won't be 1 week. I suspect 2 weeks once I actually get the ball rolling. I've been trying to make it so I have no excuses, that once I start putting drill to metal, like, it's just go. So objectively speaking, once I start that project, it's going to be go. I've also purposely been holding off on the, I don't want to call it the Paul McCartney amp because it's not for Paul McCartney, but it is for a close friend of mine, not a close friend, a good friend of mine. I don't want to overstate things, but a good friend of mine who is the guitar tech for him. I need to get that done. I want to get that done. There's no reason why I can't do it. I have everything I need to do it. I just haven't done it. I also want to make a video series on that, but I am going to do those separately. And I wanted to do that series in 4K. I'm not going to do it live like I am the giveaway, though. That one I'm just going to do like little video snippets, you know, like a build series, if you will. But I started talking with Brian several weeks ago about this new camera system that you're watching now. And I really just kind of wanted to make it all be one. So this video here is kind of the shakedown, if you will, to see if this new 4K thing is even going to work. I'll go back later and kind of review it and see if it's chunky, how clear it is. I'm sure it sounds just fine. I haven't ever had a problem with the audio aspect, I don't think. But that is really all the news that has been going on. I've just done a little bit of tightening up on these two guys here. I still need to do some tightening up on the Atlas. The Atlas I'm saying is pretty much done. Like, it is ready, but I still feel like I need to rein in a little bit of the bass, just a little bit of the bass. So we're probably going to do some just tightening up on it in that regard a little bit, just to kind of rein it down. I'm still in debates on whether or not I want to leave it cathode biased. It's happy right now, cathode biased, and it plops out about 20 watts. And that's pretty good for a cathode biased amp. But I think if I do fixed bias, I might be able to snap out like 24, maybe 25 watts out of it. It's good for that amount of wattage, but I don't know if it's worth it. It's like one of those things where it's like, do you do it? Because it's, you know, what is 5 watts? It really doesn't mean all that much. But it would be kind of cool to get it like to 21 to 24. I have to double check on it. I think right now it's literally right at like 20 watts or something, like on the money. But considering how much there is going on with that amp right there, it's never going to see production. It might just literally end up being a one-off. It's too expensive to build, and I don't think people are going to be that interested in it. Maybe that'll change once people actually get to hear it. Nobody's heard it yet. As you've probably noticed, I don't really like showing you anything until I know that I have something to show you. My 18 watt, that's a settled design. My little 5 watter is a settled design. Like, those are the designs that I know are settled. The giveaway, the last giveaway amp I did, the Peacemaker, that is a settled design. Now, the only reason the Peacemaker worked out as well as it did is because this guy right here, the Atlas, was kind of the predecessor to that. So at one point in time, the Atlas was more or less a 5e3 without some of the stuff that was in this one. So this one has a 300 in it. I believe the Peacemaker is a little bit less than that. It might be a 270. I could be, yeah, it's a 270. So it's a 270 power transformer. So it's running at slightly lower voltages, but it's using the same output transformer. Now, I did not go with a choke in that one like I did in this one. This one has always basically had a choke in it. But at one point in time, when I was fighting with trying to make a parallel path, amplifier, if you will, there was a point in time where it was more or less a 5e3. And at one point, I was using just the 12AX7 side of things, and it sounded freaking just amazeballs. I was super happy with it, but considering everything that was in this amp, I could not see just letting it go that way, which is why the Peacemaker was made the way that it was, because I knew it was basically going to be a 5e3, and I think it worked out really, really well. And you can obviously hear those videos about how it sounds, at will. The videos are out there, so don't be shy. Check them out, because that amp is done. That is a production ready amp. The 18 watt I think sounds bitchin'. There's more coming out. The 18 watt amp is technically in the hands now of a published artist, if you will. There is an artist that is on Spotify, has the full on stuff, right? No worries, dude. It's all good. It's all good. Don't work too hard. That's the thing. Don't work too hard. I guess it's Monday for you over there. So, but I technically now have an artist who is published, if you will. I call it published because he can put music on Spotify, etc., etc. So like he can monetize his own music and stuff like that at will. He is an endorsee, if you will. So obviously he endorses me and I endorse him. So it works both ways, obviously, in that case. But that's where the Purple Hazel's currently at right now. So that will probably, hopefully in the near future, you'll start seeing more videos of that in action, like literally in action with someone else who owns the amp. So it won't be just me kind of trying to peddle my own shit. Not that I've been trying to peddle my own shit anyway. I'm not really into that at the moment. That's not the goal necessarily. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Objectively, my goal is to have like 5 or 6 amps that I feel are ready. And when I mean ready, I mean like if I build this today, it'll be the same tomorrow for the person that actually buys it. I work a little differently in that I try to have a finished product first, and you guys don't ever get to see them because I don't have a lot of products that I feel ready to put out there. This one was really, really close at one point in time, and as you can see, I took off the plastic and I put faceplates on it because I knew it was settled in the all that fun stuff. I knew that was settled. Like nothing was ever going to change there. So now it's just the little fine tuning things. And it's crazy to think how much the fine tuning, at least for me, because I have a multitude of different amps. I've got, oh gosh, too many. We saw, well, what do I have just in my R&D side of things? I got these two here. I have that one there, the Atlas. And at one point I had the Peacemaker as kind of in its R&D state as well. Like all those kind of things were kind of coming together all at the same time. So if it's any indication, this guy here, the original, the OG, this one's called the Woody, but I need to come up with an actual name for this particular model. So that's another thing I need to kind of come up with, is an actual name for that model. But that one took a couple years to settle, and it was the only one I was working on. But it was like one of those things where I'd try this design, and then a few weeks later I'd come back and try a different one, and a different one, and a different one, and a different one, and a different one, until finally you work through all the different things, and then you come to that aha moment. And I wish I could say that I was at the point where I could just think a design and be like, that's going to be it, and it works. It just doesn't work that way. I've come to find that every amp has its kind of its thing, right? Like you build it a certain way at first, right? This right here did not start the way that it ended at all. Like it's in a great spot right now. But when I first built it, it was not intended to be what it is currently. It just worked out that it was just like, okay, that's not going to work. I'm not happy with that at all. It was probably closer initially when I started to this one right here, to be honest. But, you know, you just kind of like, that's not going to work. And then you start tweaking things around a little bit, and then you come to that aha, right? Like, okay, that's it. That's the one we're going to go with. So that's when I dedicated it to that, because I knew that was what was working. And then it's just, you park it for a while, then you start on these other projects, right? Because you're like, I want to do this thing next, or I want to do that, or I've been working on this, I need to finish it. This one has been fighting me. It's not that complicated, right? It's a single EF86 going into more or less an AC30 style output section ish, and that's very loose. It's kind of a cross between an AC30 and a train wreck, like, you know, Rocket or something like that, whatever their EL84 version is. But, you know, I am using tube rectification. I am using a very different output or power transformer than that model. And then of course using a very different power transformer, of course, I'm meeting somewhere in the middle between the two. But I'm doing my very own thing on the front end, right? Ken Fisher didn't use EF86s, right? And admittedly, Vox didn't use an EF86 realistically in any of their AC30 designs. They might have had a couple variations that did have it in there, but it has never been a mainstay in that particular topology. The challenge I was having with this one here is that when I would use a different output transformer, I've tried multiples, but when you use a different one that's designed to actually get the real power that it was meant to put out, so we're talking like a 4K transformer, it just sounded wrong. It didn't sound right at all. And, you know, 6.6K is probably a little on the high side. And again, I try to use lower than is normal, you know, voltages with higher than is normal output transformer primary impedances. And those two things kind of really divulge from the common world, if you will. So if you're into designing amplifiers, or you're into understanding how these things work, like the choices that you make here really do have a huge impact. A lot of the makers out there throw voltage at the design. For whatever reason, they seem to think that throwing a bunch of voltage at the design is what makes that thing tick. And now I think part of the reason that they do it is because it makes more of these commonly available. So more transformers become commonly available when you run at higher voltages. The second to that is I think that they're just straight up going for the output. Like, you know, when you got 4 bottles in a tube amp like this one here, and you're going, okay, it's only going to plop out maybe 20 watts of clean power. Like nobody's sitting there going, I want that one, right? Like it's hard to sell an amp that's only got 20 watts of clean power when you got another one like this that might plop out 30 to 40 watts of clean power. And clean power means no distortion, right? I don't know that this one will quite do that, but you know, I'm just as an example, right? So, you know, the number of watts kind of determines some people's attitude about an amp. I'm looking at it from a different aspect because I know myself that wattage does not really determine, not necessarily the loudness, but you know, like it's part of the feel, right? So 50 watts to 100 watts is technically only like 3 dB of difference in output, right? Going from 15 watts to 30 watts is only 3 dB in difference of output. 3 dB is never made or broke. You know, a show, it's never made or broke an amp. Like, obviously 5 watt, you know, there are people out there that use 5 watts all the time. There are people out there that use 12 watts all the time. Let's take Neil Young as an example, right? His 5E3, like, it's a 12 watt amp. Cut or dry, you know, however you want to do it, it's 12 watts. Now, the one I built, the 5E3 that I did, was more of an 18 watter. It was kind of a lot like this one here, right? Not quite as many watts as this one's popping out, but basically an 18 watter. So it was still already pretty spanky, and I still did it with lower voltages and slightly higher than his normal output transformer impedances. How do I do it? It just depends on how you want to measure it. No, it's not clean watts. It's not 18 watts of clean power. It's 18 watts of the power that you are going to use. So when I say you are going to use, I mean, like, literally, when you turn it up to the point where you get this shit-eating grin on your face, that's the power it's going to be putting out. Because nobody sits there and goes, well, I got 50 watts of clean power and I use every single one of those watts. No, nobody does that. Like, if you really want an amp that is straight up 50 watts of actually clean power, then you're going to buy a 100 watt amp and you're never going to hear one little lick of distortion out of it. When was the last time you heard a player that actually didn't have any amount of distortion at all in their sound? Like, even Stevie Ray Vaughan, there was a hell of a lot of distortion in his amps, even when they were technically clean. So he liked loud, clean amps because he liked loud amps, period. It's kind of like Joe Bonamassa, if you will. He doesn't go to the amp because it's clean. He goes to the amp because when he cranks it up to where he wants it, it sounds the way he wants it to. That's it. No more, no less. So I try to make amps that when you get them turned up to the point where you're happy with them, they are doing that thing. That's it. I don't care about how many clean watts or how many watts it is in general, as long as it's got enough to freaking do what you're asking it to do. So that's it. I'm almost out of drink here. It's time for some more, and then I got to go to bed. In fact, I'm going to run the dryer again. I'm actually going to transfer some stuff over. You're going to do some laundry with me, guys. How's that? Because the thing that's going to allow me to go to bed is actually in there currently. All right, there we go. Now I got my sheets are drying right now, so I can actually have nice dry sheets when I go to bed. Imagine that. So that's I've talked about it before. I do have a video out that says, why are, guitar amp designers so weird? They're weird for a reason, because there's some level of freaking, dare I say, OCD or neuroticism, or pick your expletive, pick your whatever you want to call it. Like, it's a weird breed of people because it's not exactly just something you just do, right? Martin Kidd and some of the other guys are probably a little more sane, like Carol Ann amps and stuff like that. They're a little more sane. There's a lot of guys out there that are a little more sane, but then again, they're also not the names that are worth $1 million right now. There are a few out there that are just kooky, like they just are really weird, and those are the guys that win. And it's because they got a cool story. I've talked about it before. You got to have a cool story. But for me, I don't think I'm that guy. I'm trying to inspire the next generation of people that do that. I'm hoping that you'll learn enough here. You'll get enough of an idea of what the hell is going on, why you would choose this power transformer instead of that power transformer, why you would choose this output transformer instead of that output transformer, all those little things. Why you would choose those as opposed to EL34, EL84s over EL84 words. Why you would choose EL84s over EL34s, an EF86 over a 12AX7, XYZ, na. When it comes down to the brass tacks of it, you're just trying to do something different and better than the other guy, right? Now, better is always a subjective matter, because there's always a bigger fish out there, and there's always someone that will do it better, period. There's always somebody that's going to do it better than you did. At least I feel so. I'm trying to stay in a lane where I'm doing it differently. And I'm going to do it better than anyone else in that lane at that point in time, right? I'm not ever going to say that this is going to blow your mind and take an AC30 and destroy it. It's not an AC30. It was never meant to be an AC30. It is not an AC30. It will not compare to an AC30. So it can't blow it out of the water. If you like the sound of an AC30, this will not float your boat. It is not an AC30. I don't give a... You can't convince anybody or me anyway, anyhow. That is not what it is. This thing here, it is not a train wreck, so don't compare it to a train wreck. It has similar attributes to one, but a lot of things are completely different. It is not a train wreck. It does not do anything that a train wreck does. It does what I want it to do. It just has characteristics similar to one. It is not a Marshall. It is not anything. There is nothing else like this in the world right now. I can tell you that right now. The closest possible thing, and I only say that closest possible is because I can't confirm nor deny, there's a Carson's Grace amp or whatever, which is the one that freaking is made for Billy Corgan, like I mentioned, and then I believe it's Carol Ann or whatever. There's some amp that's made by Carol, I believe it's Carol Ann amps. I don't know, whatever. In either case, it's similar, right? They're basically train wreck copies, or they have that kind of DNA built into them. I already know this one's very, very different from them. You know how I know? Because I know. I know because I know that I do something very, very different on the front end of my amps that is unlike any other out there. Mojave Amp Design used to do it. They are no longer around, but Mojave Amp Design does something similar to what I do. Matchless used to do something very similar to what I do. I kind of actually got the idea from him. There are a couple Dr. Z amps out there that also do what I do on the preamp side of things. I do not have anything like any of those other amps that I just talked about, though, other than that one common attribute. It changes everything about the remainder of the amp, though, when you start doing things differently in that regard. It doesn't work for everybody. So that's why I have to have different designs. Different designs do different things that suit different people for different reasons. So, I don't know. That's it. That's what I'm trying to show you, is that if you can find that little thing that you know how to do, you can be a freaking weirdo or a kook or something like that and do this better than I can and market it better than I can, and Bob's your uncle. I was recently watching something like Marla amplification is interesting. It baffles my mind how, as a company, they can get to where they're at with what seems like such a small support thing. I really kind of want to reach out to him and talk to him and just kind of get an idea how the hell he's pulling it off. Obviously he must know somebody, or he's a much better businessman than I am. Most guitar amp designers are not good businessmen. I'm not going to say I am either, but he definitely has something going on. He's got a connection somewhere or something like that. And I've got to watch that video that he did with Jonathan Nathan Cordy, JNC, if you want to shorten it up. But you know, he doesn't use real face plates. He uses a sticker that he basically puts on the front. So it's just a printed out sticker. That's one way to cut a lot of money, because the face plates that I use cost, I mean, it's about $30 a sheet, and I can get about 4 face plates out of one sheet. So if you want to say it's $15, it's $15 a set, minus the time spent designing and burning it out, because I do have a laser burner. But even with a laser burner and the amount of time that it takes to do it, I can't do it for only the $15. It's probably more. It probably would cost $100. To be honest, it probably costs about $100 to bash out the face plates, if you want to factor in the real time and all the energy that gets you there. The chassis, the cabinets that I use, like, I'm using this gentleman that you can find on Reverb. Works. He's great. It's nice. I can order a chassis today and it might come in a month. So I cannot rely on volume from this gentleman. I think he builds his own amps. as well, so he's probably not somebody I would want to order 10 chassis from at a time. I don't think he would like me very much if I did that, but you know, so somehow or another Marla has found a source to get a lot of these parts for very, very cheap. He's not using the premium parts. He's using more affordable stuff. He's not using the best of the best by any means. He's not using F&T and the power supply, etc. You know, if you can imagine that. He's not using absolute dog shit either, but you know, he's probably using the same pots I am, but he's buying them in bulk. Obviously, he's got something going on to the degree where, despite the amount of money he can make off of each one, his overhead is low enough that he can order enough to build 5 to 10 amps at a time. Self-admittedly, he said he usually does them in batches of 5 or so, 5 or more. So he can buy enough parts to do that at one point in time. Now, I can tell you, with the parts that I use, I can't afford to do that. If I were to literally buy enough parts to do 10 amps, I would have to take out a second on the house to do it. Like, it's a large enough amount of money when you're talking about, you know, $300 in transformers. That's on the low end. You know, we're talking $150 average between the two, but it's probably closer to $350, $400 for a set of transformers. Even if I bought them at bulk, I might be able to get it down to $300. But to buy 10 amps, it's $3,000. That's just on transformers. Tubes, Lord knows, we already know that tubes are not cheap. I mean, this is easily a $150 set of tubes, if not more. The chassis, we already know those are about $100 a pop. So there's another $1,000 right there. Like, literally, it would cost me 20, 30 grand to just build these things like 10 at a time or 5 at a time. And then I'd have to sell them. So obviously I'm not selling anything. But we're working to get in there little by little. For the time being, I'm trying to do more of a teaching, learning, and inspiring sort of thing, and just kind of explaining and getting it to a point where, as somebody who's watching this, you can get an idea of why I chose this particular output transformer, how to do the math on why you would choose that particular transformer, why you do this, XYZ. So I think with that, we have had enough for one night. I've gotten more out of this than I thought I was going to get. This was not meant to be a very long video. I do need to get to bed, and we got the burp in, so that's good. So yeah, I guess we'll call it right there. I'm going to say thank you to everybody. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, and goodbye.